Good morning. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is February 11th, 2026. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gunter,
Here.
council members Donnell,
Here.
Kaduc,
Here.
Kilrain,
Here.
Lastra,
Here.
Lehman,
Here.
Long,
Here.
Steinke,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we start business today, I would like to pull from the agenda the item number 4, LDC section 5.2.4, attached and detached garages.
Okay, so we're going to withdraw that from the agenda.
Yes, there's still a little bit more work to do on that item.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, with that being said, we'll move on to item 4. 4A is Councilmember Donnell.
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to ask council if we can move item 9 to get that started today to number 1 and just push everything down.
So you want to start with item 9?
I want to start with number 9 and then proceed as accordingly.
All right. Does everybody else?
Can I ask why? Is there a reason for that?
Yes, because that's the one that's been blowing up my phone, blowing up my text. And I'm like, look, there are people that watching came. Let's just get that out of the way so we can proceed on.
All right, I guess we'll go down the line, see if everybody's okay with that. Moving item 9 up to number 1, and then we'll do the remaining. Councilmember Kaduc.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe who I see in the audience would be for number 7, not number 9.
Thank you. I was going to ask if we
Yeah.
could move that up.
So I would proceed with number 7 as first. Thank you.
And then I guess my only concern would be that those of us that would be following would have seen that it was at the end of a very long agenda and they would have maybe not scheduled to tune in so early, would be the counterpoint to that. That'd be my only concern is that if you look at the agenda, I had this at least at 11 or noon. So I don't want there to be, especially considering the nature of the topic, that we slip one in at the last minute and everybody that had scheduled to tune in later in the day or maybe participate now misses that opportunity. That'd be my only concern.
I'm okay with moving it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we do have speakers, but you know, during a COW meeting, you can't speak during these topics anyway.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter. Citizens' inputs towards the end. So if we did move an item, it's not like these particular items are at a voting meeting and they could possibly, if it was an ordinance or resolution, provide public input. So I have no problem moving any of the items since it is a COW meeting. If it was a regular meeting, maybe a different story.
Well, I guess the only counter to that would be that was the reason that was given to move it, was that they could participate.
Okay. Councilmember Stein.
I mean, considering the fact that it's non-voting, and these are all topics that we need to consider. My only agreement with moving it forward is at the end of a long day, everybody's tired, and this is a relatively detailed and information laden topic based on the backup material that we've received and the presentation that's going to be made. It may be best that it's fresh when it's brought forward. So I would not have any problem moving it forward.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I see these guys moving around quite a bit. Are they even prepared to start with?
I'm sorry?
I see these guys moving around from the attorney's office. Are they even prepared to present first?
We weren't anticipating this to be the first one. So we need a bit of time.
I'm okay with 7, 9. It makes sense. Councilmember Kaduc.
I was going to say, if we're going to do that, let's at least do number 7. Well, 7, and then the charter amendment, which is a pretty straightforward one. And then by that time, hopefully we will be prepared.
All right, why don't we start?
I'm good with that.
Do you need a motion, Mayor?
No, we don't. It's a
Okay.
non-voting meeting. So we'll start with number 7. And then the city attorney will tell us when he's prepared to move forward with number 9, and we'll address it then. Is that everybody okay with that? All right. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and start with number 7, unlicensed contractors. Apparently, this item was brought forward by Councilmember Lastra. So we'll start with you. I'll give you the floor, and then we'll turn it over to staff from there.
Thank you, Mayor. I brought this forward because I know after Hurricane Ian, and especially when I was elected into office in November of 2024, I had several contractors reach out to me regarding this issue. And I think the biggest question they had is we used to do things one way, and then because of state statute change, we now have to do it a different way. We have a different process for dealing with unlicensed contractors. And so I wanted to bring this forward as an education piece for us and the public, but also see if there was any appetite or any will to change our process, strengthen our process, keep it the same. So with that said, if I'm good with staff showing their presentation, Mayor.
Okay. I'll turn it over to staff, Mr. City Manager.
Give me a moment.
Okay.
You're up, Matt.
It's a long walk from downstairs.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep. All right. Good morning, Mayor and council members. Matthew Grambo, Deputy Development Services Director. We've been asked to prepare a brief overview presentation of the history of unlicensed contract enforcement here in the city, as well as our current initiatives in collaboration with the DBPR. So as a brief history, prior to the preemption of local licensing by the state back in 2023, through House Bill 735, the city of Cape Coral investigated complaints of unlicensed contracting through a process that is codified in Chapter 6 of the City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances. This process involved 2 FTE positions in the Code Compliance Division, known as licensing investigators, that would investigate cases and bring cases to the city's special magistrate for evidentiary findings and penalties. Back in 2023, and I'll go into this in a little bit deeper into the presentation, Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances remains, but there was language that was removed with the sunsetting of the city's local licensing program. Historically, the city has partnered with the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation on unlicensed contractor sting houses to dissuade individuals seeking to hire unlicensed contractors to complete work. So the big year here for us was back in 2023 with the state approval of House Bill 735, which expressly preempted specialty contracting licenses being issued at the local level. In March of that year, the City Council approved Ordinance 1023, which formally sunset the city's local licensing program, including the Contractor Regulation Board. Shortly after that vote, the city issued a notice to the industry informing contractors that the city would no longer be issuing local licenses. All licensing would be through the state, and that the city would have a streamlined process to validate licenses for every permit application that is received that requires a contractor's license. So today, and over the last nearly 3 years, the city automatically validates DBPR and other state licenses through the DBPR database. When a permit applicant applies for a permit with the city, if they're not an owner builder, the software system, Enterprise Permitting and Licensing, validates that the license is active prior to accepting the permit application. And so it's streamlined, all based on software, and we validate that the permit applicant holds the license for the permit that they're applying for. With that, with local licensing no longer being issued here at the city, DBPR is our primary agency that we utilize for unlicensed contracting investigations because it's their license that they are charged with overseeing and enforcing. In the year fiscal year 2024, with the sunsetting of the local licensing program, the two full-time positions, the licensing investigators, were eliminated for fiscal year 2024. So currently, Development Services enforces contractor licensing primarily through the permitting process. Our software system and staff verify these contractors' licenses for every single permit application that requires a license. And if the permit applicant is not appropriately licensed for the permit application they're applying for, the application is not received by the city. Additionally, we identify cases of unlicensed contracting very commonly through finding unpermitted work throughout the city. So that goes through our code enforcement process. It's a permit required code case. And that's really how we are discovering many unlicensed contractors, because work has been completed. And very, very often it was done by individuals who could not have submitted and received an approved permit application through the city because we are validating DBPR licenses at that point in the process. Additionally, we have a very close relationship with DBPR, and we do referrals from our building division to the state when we find cases of unlicensed work. Just recently, we had a case where I think it was over 40 pools were built in the city by some of the unlicensed contractors. They didn't have permits. We identified these cases, brought them to the special magistrate, had a finding, and that was an enforcement action on the property owner. But the unlicensed contractors were referred to the state, to the DBPR for enforcement action. The DBPR has several tools in its toolbox to be able to enforce its licensing. They do compliance sweeps that involves state investigators entering active construction sites and checking credentials for workers on site. They do sting operations that I talked with earlier, where they have undercover agents that pose as home builders, solicit bids, and then determine if these individuals are appropriately licensed for the work. And they also have, for our residents or other interested individuals, they have a DBPR mobile app that's available on iOS and Android that can be utilized for reporting suspected unlicensed contracting work throughout the city. And it often can include sending photos and other evidentiary material to the state to kickstart their investigation into potential unlicensed contracting. And finally, our communications office has a robust communications outreach campaign every year on unlicensed contracting. They have quarterly social media posts. They publish information in the Cape Connect newsletter regarding the risks and dangers to property owners that are seeking unlicensed contracting to save a couple dollars on their project. Around hurricane season, we have a surge in unlicensed contracting as individuals enter our city trying to pick up some quick work. And so we have an entire page in our city's hurricane guide, both the digital version and the printed version, about the risks and things to look for and avoid. And we also utilize the electronic message boards on Cape Coral Parkway and Veterans to have information on unlicensed contracting. And then finally, communications issues an annual press release speaking about unlicensed contracting and the risks of hiring an unlicensed contractor. So with that, we'll be available for any discussion and questions. We have both our building official, Shane Kittendorf, and our code compliance manager, Todd Hoagland, here, and we'll be able to answer any questions that come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. So do you feel, Mr. Hoagland, that this issue has gotten better since since the statute changed in 2023? Do you feel like the enforcement's gotten better in terms of it doesn't necessarily always fall on us, it would fall on the DBPR?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Todd Hoagland, Code Compliance Manager. Councilmember Lastra, again, the referral over the past few years goes to the state. Their enforcement or their investigations, they would be best to answer the amount within our city jurisdiction to see whether it's improved or not. I know I can say the relationship is very good. The communications back and forth, anything we refer to them, they get back to us quickly. They do training for our staff and for our region, for code enforcement officers on how to communicate. So I know that that's definitely improved over the past few years.
And do you think that there's anything from a city standpoint that we should be doing differently or that we could be doing continuously to improve eliminating this issue within our city?
There's always room for improvement. I think with the permitting and the current staff that we're doing, we are seeing a lot of the unpermitted activity coming through the permitting side of things and verifying. So again, it is one of our top 5 code cases that we investigate. And again, our partners in building, they also take this very serious. And again, we address it as soon as we see it. And if it's anything, as Matt Grambo spoke earlier, it is referred off to the state if we need further assistance.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up for council discussion. Councilmember Kilrain.
Yeah, just as an antidote to this, we were at a CCCIA meeting about 2 months ago, and they had a fellow there from the state presenting, and his job was to do this. And he talked about the sting operations that occur that they have ongoing. Many of them are in Cape Coral. Matter of fact, the guy who presented lived directly across the street from me, and I didn't even know what he was doing. He's been there 15 years. But they're very active, and they're open to present that to this format if you'd like to have it someday presented here, or some interface that he made a very good presentation at the CCCIA, and it was very compelling as to how they operate their stings and follow up on things. So thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let these guys know that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question for Councilmember Lastra and then for staff. You say that the building industry came to you around concerns around this and whatnot. What were the concerns? Was it that there was not enough enforcement, not enough sting operations?
Yes.
What was the concern?
The concern was that in the past, prior to 2023, before the statute changed, we did our own stings and we did our own enforcement. When that changed, it turned over the state. The concern I received, even after Hurricane Ian, when I was in office before, was that the city isn't doing enough to be able to stop this issue. And I explained, in a hurricane and a storm, sadly, our residents get taken advantage of, not just us, but anywhere in the country. So I wanted to bring this forward so that we could educate and understand why it changed, how it changed, and has the problem gotten better? In other words, now that the state is handling the enforcement, do we see an improvement?
Okay, thank you. And so it was your slide with the enforcement. So number 4, the compliance sweeps, the sting operations, the mobile app reporting. Do we get quantitative data if the state's doing that and they're coming in, if you will, unannounced, and they're doing these sting operations? Do we then get something that says, hey, we were in town on this date through this date, and here's what we found, and here are the people that are, breaking the rules. Here's what's being done with those people. Do we get that, and does that become public knowledge?
It's my understanding we have not been receiving that, but we can definitely speak with our regional representative to gather some of that information and then share that with council.
I would think that from a public notice standpoint, as citizens are trying to meet the rules and hire licensed people to do the work and whatnot, if we had a list of the ne'er-do-wells that were found by the state, certainly if we did it locally, we could do that ourselves. But if we don't get a report back that says, here's what we found and here's what's being done about it, then kind of let the public beware. We have no way to help them. So it would be my request that if we see that for the most part that this system is working, then I would say one of the things that we could do to make it work better would be, let's get the results of what's happening during these stings so it can edify our citizens around, it's being done. Here's what has been found. And oh my gosh, I didn't even know I needed a permit for that, maybe, right? And then, here are the people to stay away from. Certainly out on social media, you get a whole bunch of that. But, certainly having it from qualified people from the state would be something I'd like to see happen.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, excuse me, I don't see any other lights on. I guess, Councilmember Lastrick, I heard you had, sound like 3 asks or three options? Kind of keep as it is?
Yeah, just keep it as it is, and with what Councilmember Stanky recommended, which I think is excellent, and I think that would help our residents. I think it would benefit them because they would know the list of individuals to stay away from, because it can be very costly, I know firsthand, to have an unlicensed contractor do work, especially after a storm. And I think, I love that idea. So I think I'm good with keeping it the way it is, but maybe adding what Councilmember Steinke said for the residents and individuals in our community who do not follow the rules.
Okay. All right. Is everybody okay with that? Just kind of leaving it status quo? For me, I think what we're doing when we're pulling permits or, what staff is doing is checking to make sure that the individual is licensed, and you're doing that with every permit. So I think, I wasn't even aware of that. So I think that's a great thing. I know in our BTRs that we have to apply for each and every year, two of the things that I know we have to submit is our licensing and insurance, workers' comp, or if we're exempt or whatever the case may be. So I know that we're doing that on a yearly basis. Also, so to know that we're doing it on every permit, we're doing it on a yearly basis, I think it's good there. Not saying that somebody in the public just can't be out there doing work and not getting a permit or making the homeowner go and get the permit under owner builder, but we can address that with this thing. So I'm good with the status quo, and I think that's a good recommendation that you made. To see the results, not only so we know how much or if there is a problem out there, but also to have that data, be able to provide it to the community. Hey, we are out there looking. So I think that's a great idea. Good, Councilmember.
Yeah, I did have one other point, and that is that while the check is done at permit, what is done to make sure that that contractor that's on that permit is actually doing the work in the field?
Want to take that one, Jay? Well, throughout the permit cycle, the contractor is the authorized representative to schedule inspections, to resubmit documentation. And so to ensure that the project is moving through the process and not facing expiration for 180 days of inactivity, that contractor who has an account within the EPL system is the only party that can request inspection. So that's one. That's how we ensure that it's still the same licensed individual working on the project throughout the entire cradle to grave cycle of the project.
So are there any site visits? Obviously, with losing staff, it makes it harder to do that, but do we still have staff that actually do spot site visits just to check in and make sure the people doing the work are from that company, from that contractor, or is that up to the state as well?
Good afternoon, Council Mayor, Shane Kintner, building official. Councilmember Steinke, can you clarify that question when you're saying doing a site check?
So consumer A submits an owner builder permit with contractor B, and worker C that was picked up at Home Depot at 5 a.m. is the one out there doing the work. How do we know when that's happening and it's not actually the contractor that's doing the work that is licensed and has proven through testing that they know what needs to be done and how? How do we know that they're the ones either doing the work or supervising the work?
So when a permit is issued during the course of construction, there's required inspections that one shall call in during that process. And if the contractor has given out his license per se, where he signed the contract, he is pulled the permit, and he has no want to do the job, then it's kind of hard for us to really capture that that unlicensed individual. Now, with a licensed contractor on file, that licensed contractor, anybody that walks in that job site shall be covered by his workers' comp and insurance. So God forbid the homeowner goes and brings somebody from Home Depot, brings them on a job site, and that contractor is unaware. If that person gets injured, then that contractor is liable for that responsibility along with that owner.
Because I think that was one of the driving forces, I think, for approaching Councilmember Lastra, and that is during those times of vulnerability after storms and things like that, we have licensed contractors from cities other than our own come to town and get signed up to get this work done, and they go back to that city where they were from, and oftentimes money's changed hands and the work never gets done. And other times they've left and someone else is actually doing the work under that person's license. And so without some form of, checking in, supervision, how do we ensure that that's not happening? And, do we have the staff that would be able to do that, number one? And number two, is that something where we have to request from the state, hey, we need this help, and maybe even, enhanced supervision and enforcement after storms and whatnot?
You're definitely touching on a very high level, all-encompassing discussion of, do we have enough resources, one, to police the city in a manner that every 2 weeks we would go out and do a site check on the 34,000, 40,000 permits that get issued a year. So that would be a very cumbersome process that we would be doing something of that nature. To know whether or not a person is licensed is when you have a contractor. That contractor doesn't necessarily have to be on the job site himself. He's a licensed professional. He is hired, quote, the subcontractors to come in and perform those said scopes of work. So if you walked on a job site and that person has under the contractor, then you would have to get into more of a time-consuming discussion to figure out, is this person legitimate or not, and then the behind the scenes on how to get there. So the question is, how deep do we want to get or dive into the rabbit hole to address this world? There's a lot.
Shane, is it illegal for under the premise of the discussion we're having, is it illegal for a contractor to pull a permit and have someone else perform the work under their license?
That's considered aiding and abetting unlicensed activity when they're, even as a contractor, they're selling their license or renting their license out to somebody else to do it. Then yes, that is a violation of statute and could be grounds for a license removal or probation.
And if the person they sub it out to or they let do the work is also licensed in that trade, is that illegal?
If the contractor is licensed and they have another licensed professional walk on that requires that licensure, then no, it's not illegal.
So when and if there was a staff group set out to look at this, to spot check who pulled the permit, who's doing the work, even in that work, we could find that contractor A wrote the contract, was awarded the work, ran out of crews, and then subcontracted to contractor C. And so in not all instances is illegal activity taking place.
Correct.
But you would
But
definitely need people to investigate and explore all of it.
And I think our local construction industry is okay with that. What I don't think they're okay with is when someone comes in and hasn't, invested in our community and has their business here in our community. When someone that hasn't done that comes in, gets the contract, gets awarded the contract, and then has someone do the work that is not licensed and does not sub that work to another contractor in our area. So that's the piece that it would seem that the state is responsible for doing that kind of stuff too. And since we removed the resource to go out there and do it ourselves, do they have the resource to be able to do that? And maybe if we get regular, hey, here are the visits that we've made, here's what we found when we were there, then we can also monitor how often they're here and how much of this attention we're getting when they're responsible for the entire state. Well, how much of that's happening in the fastest growing city in the state? And are we getting our proportionate share of the state's resources to make sure that this is happening properly? We can't measure what we get from the state unless we know how often they're here and what they're doing. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Lehman?
Actually, I think Mr. Stinky covered everything I was going to bring up. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kilroy?
Just one more point. I think that when we have illegal contracting done and unlicensed contracting done during a storm condition or whatever, that becomes a felony, does it not? So it moves from a misdemeanor classification to a felony. I think to the fact that we educate people on that portion of it, I think will be helpful to make sure that they understand if you're playing that game during troubled times, you're going to be in deep trouble. So that's the only point. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. And sounds like we'll continue status quo like we have been with the recommendation that Councilmember Steinke made.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready for item 9, or do you want to do one first?
Let's, what I was thinking is maybe we can do the charter amendment, the mayor pro tem one, and then go right to the very last one, which is the strong mayor.
All right.
If you,
But that's all under section,
no,
not-
that's number 8.
okay, there it is. 8. All right. All right. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. City Attorney, and
Thank you.
we'll move on to item 8.
Thank you. And a little bit of background, as you know, there was the Charter Review Commission. The Charter Review Commission presented, I believe it was 8 potential charter amendments that you all had multiple meetings on and ultimately identified that you were going to move forward with 4 of them. Of the 4, this is the one pertaining to the mayor pro tem. What it does and what it's accomplished, it does identify when the election of the mayor pro tem will occur. Once there is an actual election versus those years where there is not an election. So as you can see, there is ballot language. I'm going to read the ballot language as it is right now. I believe it clearly identifies what it is that we're seeking to amend in this specific portion of the charter. So the ballot language as it stands right now, if you all approve this, will read as such. This proposal amends the Cape Coral City Charter to clarify that the election of the mayor pro tem shall be by the majority vote of the city council to be held at the first regular council meeting following each city general election. As you can see, we've attached Exhibit A, and Exhibit A identifies where we've added regular in 4.06B. Before there was no regular, it was just the first council meeting. And as we all know, that created a bit of an issue after the last general election. This now clarifies that it does require a regular council meeting. So if there was a special council meeting, it would not be sufficient. It would not be compliant with the charter. With that said, I have highlighted the election date of August 18th, 2026. That is the primary. You all have not identified whether or not you want it on the primary, which is August 18th of 2026, or whether you want it on the general election, which is November 3rd of 2026. So 2 things I really need you all to, at this point in time, identify if you are satisfied with the ballot language as it's so identified in this proposed ordinance. And then secondarily, if you are satisfied with this, I believe that it clearly articulates it. It's less than the minimum amount required. And then whether or not you want to go on the August primary or if you want to go on the general election, which is in November.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kilrain?
Yeah, I'm fine with the language. The only question I would have is we don't mention it or anything about being able to have at the end of 1 year, whether or not you can go on to a second year if the council approves it. We probably don't need it in this, so I don't think we have to have
You
it.
do not, because that was unaltered language and there was really no issue of that. So that's why it would be improper for me to put that in there.
Okay, and I'm okay with doing it in the primary. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in? Everybody, or is everybody okay with the way it's presented? Everybody?
No, I'm not.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and speak
I
up
think
then?
it should be after the general election because depending on who then is on council, they then have the opportunity, to be part of the whole discussion. So I think it needs to be not at the first meeting at the, the swearing in after the general election, but at the first regular council meeting. I don't think it's really a good idea after the primary. I think we need to wait till after the general election.
Mr. City
Thank
Attorney.
you.
Mr. City Attorney.
This is when the referendum will go on, not when the mayor pro tem is established. But it's, do we want this referendum language to go out for a vote during the primary election?
Oh, no. In
the
that
general.
case, yes, it has to go back to the primary. Then it does. Yes, I'm sorry.
Right, so
Okay, I
Yeah,
misunderstood.
this
I'm
isn't for the
sorry.
appointment of the pro tem.
Yes.
This is for which election do we want this ballot on? to
Okay,
determine whether-
I'm sorry, I
I guess
misunderstood.
maybe we just,
Thank
is everyone satisfied with the ballot language? And if there's consensus here, then we're good to go. And I see that everyone seems to be okay and there's no opposition to it. So now I just need to know whether or not you want it on the primary or the general.
And your recommendation was to put it on the primary?
I've have it as a primary.
All right.
It's a innocuous charter amendment. I don't see it being controversial or problematic, so I don't see why not put on the primary.
Okay, everybody okay with the primary?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so what I'm going to do now, based on that, it'll come before you at the very next regular council meeting because it is an ordinance, and then it'll be have to approved as it normally is done. Secondarily, the other three ballot measures that were ultimately authorized by this council, I will have those for you on the 25th Committee of the Whole, and we can then discuss those at that point in time. All right?
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to item 9 then. Item 9 is additional review of the city charter. And one of those topics is the strong mayor discussion. So I'll turn over to Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. We have spent quite a bit of time. As you all know, this originated from the special council meeting that occurred on December 10th of the year 2025. It was at that point in time brought up where there was a desire to potentially migrate over to a strong mayor form of government. There was direction provided to my office to commence the process of identifying all potential avenues for accomplishing that. We have spent quite a bit of time in order to prepare a presentation which will be presented by Josh from my office. It is essentially an attempt to get a little bit more clarity from you all as to where it is that you would like me to proceed forward. There are a lot of provisions that require me modifying. We will get into the specifics of it, but I also want to let you know, and for the general public, we've attached an extensive amount of backup information. That from the National League of Cities, also from the Florida League of Cities, and some other information that we thought that was pertinent that we received as part of our research in order to provide you the most comprehensive presentation and backup material for your consideration. So with that, Josh is going to commence the process. I will jump in and out as we proceed forward so that, you all have at least a solid foundational understanding of what it is to migrate over from the type of government we have now to a strong mayor form of government. With that, Josh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Boxner. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Joshua Frederickson, Assistant City Attorney. And as the City Attorney explained, we're here today to present on the strong mayor form of government. If we can get the right PowerPoint presentation up there. And so today's presentation is intended to do three things. First, to walk through the timeline of events that has brought us here to this discussion. Second, to outline policy options associated with a strong mayor form of government. And finally, and most importantly, to respectfully seek direction from the mayor and the city council on which provisions you would like to see included or excluded in a potential charter amendment to transition our form of government from the council manager form to the strong mayor form. So I'll start with a timeline. On January 15th, at the committee of the whole meeting, January 15th of 25, that is, the mayor and the council put forth the requirements for the application process for the Charter Review Committee. The Charter Review Committee was nominated and affirmed on April 9th through the 16th. On April 29th through October 9th, the Charter Review Commission met, discussed various options, and the work culminated in a set of recommendations that were brought back to the City Council. On October 29th to 25, the chair of the Charter Review Committee, Mr. Leone, provided his recommendations, and following that presentation on December 10th of 25, the council provided direction to the city attorney's office to draft an amendment, a charter amendment to transition our form of government to a strong mayor. And so in researching this project and attempting to complete it, we started off with searching for a model charter. In other words, like the model rules, different organizations come up with model charters. And we reached out to the Florida League of Cities to assist us in this research. The Florida League of Cities provided us with information indicating there was no strong mayor form of government model charter. They did have a council manager model charter. This led us to start researching the municipalities in the state that do have a strong mayor form of government. Before we get into the specifics, just general overview, wide lens, the differences between a council manager form of government and a strong mayor form of government. Under a strong mayor system, the executive and legislative powers are more clearly divided. There's almost a checks and balances type of situation where council functions as the legislative body and the mayor serves as the chief executive. Under the council manager form, the manager serves as the chief executive and is responsible for managing the day-to-day operations, as you know. In the strong mayor form of government, the mayor typically holds budgetary and appointing authority, may exercise veto power, directs administrative as well as the political power of the city. By contrast, the council mayor model, or council manager model rather, the mayor is largely ceremonial, part of the legislative body, and has no involvement in the day-to-day. During our research, we wanted to see what other cities have done recently. We found that the most recent transition was in the year 2000 when Pensacola approved a strong mayor charter amendment. It has been tried in Lakeland and Miami in 17 and 18, which failed. In 22, Sarasota decided not to put it on the ballot. So we reached out to the Florida League of Cities. Their response was that there was no strong mayor charter that they could identify. They pointed us to the National Civic League Model Charter, which since 1915 has produced a manager council form of government. According to the Florida League of Cities, there are 43 municipalities in the state of the 411 cities that have the strong mayor form of government. So since we weren't able to find anything specific from the Florida League of Cities, we looked to and trying to compare as best we could. We engaged in a comparative analysis. Now, as you can see, we have a line there under plantation.
Yeah, let me stop you right there, Josh. So what we've done is, in order to try to even remotely identify a comparison, considering our population, what we've essentially put is the top 11 municipalities in the state of Florida that have a strong mayor form of government. Now, what I will tell you is we've essentially, and Josh will get into that, we've essentially eliminated Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a unified government between the city and the county, and we thought that it would be inappropriate to even consider them because of how they are structured, and Josh will show that. And then what we've gone further then is then take the 10, but then as you can see, Sweetwater will now be 11, but it will be 10. It's got a population of 21,000. All the rest have a population of less than 21,000, and we thought that that would be inappropriate for even to consider that, considering that we are well beyond, as you see, we have the estimates at 233,000. A lot of those are smaller entities. They may not necessarily have a police force. They may contract with the sheriff's office. They may not have a fire department. They may contract with the county. So we didn't think that that was an apples to apples comparison because of how small of a population that they are. So as Josh pointed out, and I'll turn over to him, we did draw a line. And so that line is anyone with a population of over 100,000 people, and we'll get into the specifics of their charters and some of the nuances associated with each individual ones. Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you, Mr. Boxner. And so as the city attorney was explaining, we attempted to do this comparative analysis, considering the population. Jacksonville is sui generis. It's a unicorn. It's nothing like it in the state. It's the only consolidated government. And it has been so since 1968, I believe. And so, and this is just an illustration. Obviously, in a county and a city consolidated government, you're looking at all sorts of different dynamics at play that are not applicable to the city of Cape Coral. We also we started looking at the other charters, and this is just statistical information for the charters that we reviewed. And when we reviewed them, we noticed some striking differences between some of the provisions. We decided that we needed to seek further direction from the city council in order to determine what variation would be preferred in terms of the different factors at play. And so, again, you can see the primary municipalities that we looked at, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Chesed Strong Mayor form of government, Hialeah, West Palm Beach, and Plantation. So some common themes that we saw across jurisdictions were the strong mayor duties to enforce the charter and ordinance, have executive power of the city, supervise all departments, appointments, suspensions, removals, demotions, attending all city council meetings, and typically they don't have voting powers. There are two municipalities, Orlando and Apopka, that have voting powers, but typically the mayor is the executive under this system of government, does not have a vote except under certain circumstances. If someone is absent, some of the charters address that. So in some of the specific charter provisions that we want you to consider, the Tampa Charter, again, the mayor signs contracts, negotiates on behalf of the city, determines the compensation for all city employees and officers, is the general charge, management, control, and supervision of the city, can issue executive orders. The Orlando City Charter is unique in that it allows its mayor to have a voting place on the council. Also requires the mayor to be a full-time mayor, that they have to keep office hours at City Hall. And again, as I mentioned before, some of the charters have provisions that allow a succession of folks in terms of the voting, depending on the circumstance. The St. Petersburg Charter, the mayor shall appoint every person on a city board or commission, establishes the personnel rules and regulations, can consolidate and combine departments as necessary. St. Petersburg has a line item veto. The Hialeah Charter allows for removal of department head that has to be affected by a majority vote of the council. Some of the other charters had different officers, such as the police chief or the fire chief, reporting directly to the mayor and serving at the pleasure of the mayor, where the council does not have any sort of input. Other charters have sort of an advice and consent function where the mayor will appoint the department heads, and then the council will vote on whether or not to affirm them. Again, West Palm Beach, full-time position, no outside employment, and also any financial interests of any private business entity or compensation if that they're not allowed to have. West Palm Beach, again, fixes the salaries and wages of the officers and employees of the city, allows for executive orders. In West Palm Beach, the mayor prepares the agenda for the city commission meetings. In Plantation, the chief administrative officer is appointed. That's akin to a city manager, I think, that must be affirmed by a majority vote of the council. And they can appoint with the consent of the council, but they can remove without the consent of the council. So these are some of the factors and the variations. It's not as simple as just striking out city manager and replacing it with mayor in our charter. So we need direction from you in terms of what direction to go. Unique Tampa provisions also include the ability of the city council to appoint their own attorney, a city council attorney, in addition to the city attorney. Different charters have different rules in terms of when the veto must happen. Some say it has to happen at that meeting or within 24 hours, at the next meeting. Different provisions for succession. And again, in Tampa, the internal auditor, police, and fire chief are under the direct supervision of the mayor. They answer to the mayor. They serve at the pleasure of the mayor. Council is cut out of that process in Tampa. And in Orlando, as we talked about, and according to the Florida League of Cities, only Apopka, which is a smaller city which we do not review very closely, and Orlando have the voting power. So do we want a strong mayor in Cape Coral to be a voting member? Do they simply have an executive role? Again, 24 hours to approve or disapprove of an ordinance. And St. Petersburg, special legal counsel may be employed by the mayor. Do we want to give a strong mayor in Cape Coral that authority or not? So as you can see, there are various charter provisions. So we went through the comparative analysis. Again, which department heads do we want the mayor to have absolute authority over? Do we want to have a check and balance and an advising consent? Do we want to include a provision that the mayor should not have any outside employment or any other financial interests, that they are to hold office hours? What limitations on the veto time frame? Do we want to, like Plantation does, cut the council completely out of having any say whatsoever in the day-to-day operations and having it be a basis for discipline for the council or removal, I should say, in some of the other provisions that we looked at? So with all that being said, when we looked at these various charters throughout the state of what we found to be the most comparable cities, there are substantial distinctions in the distribution of responsibilities and the scope of the mayor's duties and obligations under the different charter provisions, from advice and consent to approval of the city council versus reporting directly to the mayor, serving at the pleasure of the mayor, whether the mayor is a voting member of the council or under what circumstances the mayor could become a voting member of the council, in the event of a tie, perhaps. Whether department heads report directly to the mayor or council, or is the council completely cut out of that process? So it's a lot to think about. I hope that we have illustrated the direction that we need in terms of the variations that are available to choose from. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the city attorney.
Thank you. So if you recall, what we did was, at least the direction back in the 10th, was to identify some additional options so we could bring it back to the committee of the whole. That's what we've done here today. I need you all to identify what you want me to do. The ultimate result, the only way I can make this really work is a repeal and replace of the entire charter. Depending on what you say, because I can't insert a strong mayor for where the city manager is. It just would not be logical. It would be impractical. So this was brought forward to you so at least I could have some guardrails to understand what you're all comfortable with, so then I could actually start crafting a replacement charter based upon a strong mayor form of government.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up for discussion. Councilmember Long.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to get ahead of it, I guess. You guys know where I stand on this. I'm not going to regurgitate my points unless you force me to. The main point here is really about letting the people decide, whether the chief executive of the city should report, to the citizens through the electoral process or not. That's really what it comes down to. As far as how we structure it, those are all things that we can discuss here today. I think the more common thing that you see is the mayor is the chief administrator, is responsible for running the day-to-day. Immediately under him, he has a chief administration officer, which is, for all intents and purposes, the same form as the city manager now, as far as an educated administrator that's been through the process and assists with the day-to-day. Only he reports directly to the mayor, which in turn reports to the citizens. So that's the framework. One, I guess, clarification from the presentation, and Josh, I appreciate it. Great information here for all of us. Is I guess the context I want to extract is that it seems like when you say, and it wasn't directed anyway, oh, well, we reached out to the Florida League of Cities and they didn't have an example. Almost like, minimizing the volume of cities that operate under a strong mayor. But in reality, when you look at large picture, there's so many small cities in the state. And so to contextualize it in the reference to this discussion, the ones that we constantly look to when we have discussions on anything across the city are the top 10 and mostly the ones above us. And so in that context, all of the cities population-wise above us, except one, operate under the strong mayor form of government. And so not to say let's copy them or let's catch up, but I did want to provide that bit of context because here there's several instances where, oh, there's only 10, we're 5 with a population less than 100,000 that operate that way. But again, we're constantly looking up. We're a growing city. And so I wanted to make sure that you all had that in the back of your mind. Obviously, you'll hear more from me whether you want to or not, but I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Councilmember Kilrain.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, I can't think of a worse move for the city to do in the long run. I think that for a lot of reasons that strong mayor position is really going to compromise what the city can become, and it really is going to restrict our future. First of all, it's going to just throw play over to a political partisan-based decision-making process and take away all merit-based thinking about things. And I don't know, in private industry, when you have a CEO or a COO come into a position and he has that kind of policy and also structural authority over the organization, he's done that over decades. If we're turning over each election the potential to have a political puppet and a puppet staff in here, I think that we're going to lose effectiveness, efficiency, and economic benefit. We become a pay for play versus a meritorious operation. Again, that's my personal opinion. As far as having the city attorney do all this work over the next couple of weeks or months and really come up with something that would be acceptable. All of the communication I've had on this, almost 9 out of 10 people are totally against it. And so I think it's a waste of time for the attorney, for the city to even entertain this at this point in time. Perhaps when we get fully built out, that might be a way to do it. The other thing is, I'm not discounting that only 43 cities have adopted this out of 411. That's a telling process in time, over time, that shows you that it's not a very popular and probably not a very effective methodology for operating government. With all due respect, we have a present system in which there's deliberation among 8 people, and each of us kind of breed and thrive on each other's thoughts and processes. The potential is to lose that and have almost a dictatorship mentality come in here. We would lose a lot of expertise, I think, and God forbid, if you got the wrong guy in there, it's going to be a big money game. I think elections here would be, the mayoral election is going to be multi-millions of dollars to be able to get elected to become a city mayor at that time. And if that mayor, wanted to control salaries, control staff expertise, it's a fleeting process. So you're at the whim of what the political system would do. Right now, I think that we have excellent staff. We've worked hard to get there, great expertise, and it's probably not the best system, but it sure as heck works pretty darn well. I would hate like heck to see us be able to change that. Maybe at full build out is something we can consider, but we're far from it right now. And I seriously think that would have a tremendous job in educating the electorate on what the ramifications would be of this in a fair manner. And don't forget, once we structure language that's appropriate for the ballot to have a referendum, we cannot, as a city, position ourselves to support one or the other topics in any manner at all. So we're kind of diluted in the ability to be able to educate people on that. And for that reason, I would like to see today maybe us build to a consensus as to whether or not there's support to put this on the ballot. I think that would be a great question to answer here today, and just have a consensus discussion about whether it should go on the ballot. And if it shouldn't go on the ballot and we don't think there's enough votes to have it on the ballot, I think we just drop it for right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Lehman?
Yeah, I would agree with Councilmember Kilrain. At one point, I did think that a strong mayor situation would be a good idea, but on further research, we're still growing. We're not at build out. Maybe down the road, it might work. But for right now, there's no way. And I don't see the attorney spinning his wheels to go through all the paperwork and all the documentation for something that I don't think would ever be. I think the way we have it now is the way it works. I think if this way, the council can give direction. We're not relying on one person. I don't think a strong mayor situation would be the answer for us at this point in time. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke?
Thank you, Mayor. I too agree with Councilmember Kilrain. And I wanted to add a couple things. Given the list, when you look at 3/4 of the cities that use strong mayor having less than 20,000 in population, much of that is because they do farm out their services, and there is someone else handling the police and handling the fire and handling emergency management. And so the magnitude of the job is such that, yes, that could be left to a person. But the concern that I have over the top 7, if you will, that are in the list that have those higher populations is we're very unique in the sense that we are still only a bit over 50% built out. There is still a tremendous amount of legislation that needs to be considered and carried out over that period in time. And that's where a tremendous amount of focus that the mayor and the council have to spend their time doing and have to focus on. The difference between legislation and management is huge. Administrative management is a skill, and it's in a city of our magnitude, it's an education that one can go to just like they would want to become a doctor or a lawyer. They actually get into municipal management studies, and to rely upon an elected official to have that education and to have that experience is dangerous. And so the ability to do a talent search for someone that has that skill and has that experience and expertise needs to be able to be done on a national level for a city, an organization our size. And so to think that the best person suited for that type of an administrative role would be inside the city limits of Cape Coral is highly limiting. And so to have a legislative branch for our city and an administrative branch for our city that is responsible to the legislative, that is the whole council manager format. And that's why you see the vast majority of 411 cities in the state of Florida using that form of management. And so I too agree that we are in the proper form today. Maybe when the day comes that we are an infill city. And that's what most of those large cities are. They're built out, they're dealing with building up and infill and redevelopment. They're not dealing with filling in 45% of the city that is not established yet. So I personally don't want to see our legal department going through the massive charter change that would be required for a form of government that I do not believe is in our best interest right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Donnell, since you haven't spoken, I'll go to you next, and then Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you for the presentation, and you all know where I stand strongly. So I'm not going to repeat that. Well, I would say that when I talked last time, I said, let's get more information, because where it stood was to get more information out to the public. So for me, I try to stick with the data. The data is very clear at this point in time. This is not the way to go that's been presented. We can go and interpret and talk and massage at everyone's purview. But what caught me today from this presentation is what's on the board right now, that last bullet at the bottom. I don't know if the people understand, and please don't, when I say that, I'm not trying to talk down, but to repeal and replace our form, our charter, that is huge. So I'm saying to you that the data strongly suggests at this point in time that that's not something, the direction that we would like to go. Now, where we get caught and what I've been struggling with, council, is then, well, we just let the people decide. So are you saying the people can't decide? Well, what I'm saying is they've elected us for issues like this. The average person, yes, they could, but they don't have the time to dig in to the details and understand the magnitude of what this really is. That's why they elected us, to vote, to speak on their behalf on issues like this. I also appreciate, I think we all got a letter. I thought about reading it, but we got it from 2 former mayors, 2 former council members, huge in the community. All the data is there. So what I'm looking for, without getting, I won't speak again, I would like to just end this piece somehow. We know it's a cow, so we don't have to spend the next week and go through and people sit on pins and needles about what's our government going to do. I don't know if that's possible, but I understand it, but that is absolutely not the way to go at this point in time, in my humble opinion, based on the data. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Long.
Yeah, I guess just to address the last piece, I mean, how can we expect the voters to ask to change something that they don't understand fully exists? And so I get the point where they elect us to make decisions for them. But I think if you went out and polled a large majority of the city, 99.9% would think that the mayor was the chief administrator of the city. He was the one that made the decisions. And you can see that reflected in the media. You can see that reflected on social media, for whatever that's worth. And so also part of our job is to point out structural deficiencies and put it to the public to decide. And so what I keep hearing here is really that we don't trust the public we don't think they're smart enough to make a decision on their own with regard to how their city is governed. And so, I would remind you all that those are people that you don't trust to make those decisions, that you don't feel that they're capable, are the same people that were capable enough to put each one of you up here on this dais. And so I believe that they deserve the respect to at least have the decision of how they're governed. But a lot of the discussion here today, frankly, it doesn't make much sense. The main thing that I hear is, well, let's wait until we're fully built out. Maybe when we're fully built out, infill. But if you look at the data, and it was actually presented to us, every one of the cities that are larger in population adopted or enacted the strong mayor far before they were built out. Jacksonville, 1968, there were about 500,000 population. Today, they're 1 million. It's half built out. I won't remind you where we are. Tampa, 1927, not even going to waste your time with that argument. Orlando, later half of the 20th century, 2000, let's just say, 185,000. Today, they're 345. Sounds like half to me. St. Pete, 1993, again, won't even bother you with those. Hialeah, 1925. So let's wait till we're half built out. Doesn't really play well. In fact, the reason I brought it forth is because we're half built out. We've still got a lot of road ahead of us. And so the idea that we continue forward and we build out the rest of this city under an executive that's accountable to the people, that by the definition of the strong mayor and the data that presents, promotes fiscal responsibility and growth. That's the discussion that we should be having. So, some of the stuff, it's dangerous to have an elected official be the chief executive rather than a career administrator. The whole foundation of the country is run on the basis of an elected official that's not a career administrator. So, that doesn't play. Oh, well, 4 years, we elect someone and we're stuck with them for 4 years. 5, you can fire the city manager tomorrow. That's the definition of democracy, right? Is that the people are accountable for their elected officials, and the elected officials in turn have a 4-year term under the Constitution or the Charter to fulfill the obligations of that. So again, you see that throughout the country. That's literally the definition of the electoral process. I mean, it sounds like we're not going in the direction where we want to do it, and that's fine. We make our decisions together. But again, Councilwoman Lehman, when she said, "Oh, well, at one point I thought it was a good idea," it's not about what we think. It's about what the people feel should, how the process is that they should be governed by. And so she said she thought it was a good idea. She actually didn't think that it was a good idea. She actually said, and quote, "It needs to go on the ballot. I think it needs to go on the ballot. I think that the citizens need to be able to weigh into this and know what's really going on. As to whether it's a strong mayor type of government or we continue the way it is, I think that's a decision that needs to be up to the citizens." That is a quote from Councilwoman Lehman. So that's what she thought last time. Not that the council, a strong mayor form of government was good, not that it was bad, but that it was up to the people. So the vote change here, sounds like she's changing her vote. She's really changing the thought of whether the people deserve to have this decision or not. And I want to make sure that you all are aware of that. Thank you.
Councilmember Kilrain?
Yeah, with respect to, having people's voice on this, the process in itself, the ultimate goal here is to have a mayor in power. That process will reduce resident focus and input to decisions being made by the city. Right now, we're accessible. All of us up here are accountable, and we hold city staff accountable at the top levels. It's our problem if we don't hold them accountable. We own that responsibility, and we need to execute it that way. As far as representation and bringing it up through the ranks, we had a charter review committee that we put together that was representing us to the best of their ability and speaking for a broader section of and cross section of residents. This came up several times in those discussions, from what I understand, and it was never brought forward by them. They never felt it was the right thing to do. We have now the liaison for that group bringing it forward here and championing it. And with all due respect, I think that it's valid that he does that. But we had opportunities to bring things to the residents in the past that a lot of people on this council right now did not champion going out for referendum. And I'm going to just stop at that point. But basically, I don't like the idea of wasting a lot of time on this right now. If we have a consensus up here that does not support it going on the ballot, I think we should determine that today and put a fork in it if that's necessary. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Long.
Yeah, only counter to that is that you can't cherry pick, right? Because we've had the Charter Review Commission that you just cited as a reason why, their decision was that we shouldn't. They also, by a large majority, if not unanimously, championed that we should put to the voters single-member districts. And this body unanimously denied that. So we can't have it both ways. Thank you.
Okay, it sounds like we're at a point, I think when we had a previous discussion on this matter, if I recall correctly, the consensus was 5-3. It sounds like we do not have a majority, the 5 that want to move this forward at this time. So I think what we should do is exactly what some of my colleagues have said is we'll go down the line and, it's a simple yes or no. Either no, you don't want to proceed and instruct the city attorney to continue down this path, or it's a yes that you do. And then we'll see where the majority consensus here is today. If it's a no, then we're done. If it's a yes, then we'll continue down the path either today or into the future.
And a tie 4-4 would be a no.
Exactly. Just like everything else that we do here, it has to be a majority, which is five individuals that are sitting up here would have to move that forward. If it's a 4-4, like all other votes, it did not get the majority, so there's no consensus. So with that being said, since we started with Councilmember Duke last time, we'll start down on the other end with Councilmember Downer.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all the work that City Attorney's Office did up to this point, and
We'll dust it off in a couple years.
yeah, put it on the shelf. Thank you. All right, let's move on to next item on the agenda is item number 1. I guess we'll circle back to that one. Cape Coral Rowing Club lease agreement. And I'll turn that over to Mr. City Manager to start with.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to have Parks and Rec discuss this item. This is being brought forward for 2 reasons. One, since I've been here, I've made a commitment to this council that anytime there is a decision made with regards to any land the city owns, that I would bring you a term sheet related to the items and terms and conditions of the use of that property. And then even further on top of that, a couple years ago when this item was originally discussed with the community and with council, it was a commitment made to make sure that we bring back before the community and the council, specifically this rowing club at Tropicana Park. What we have before you today is just a template of items to be discussed. It is not the agreement. It is not a draft of the agreement. What we're seeking to get from the council today are any other nuances or restrictions around the operations so that we can go back and build an agreement that will eventually be brought back to you all for a vote. So this is just a pulse check, let you know kind of where we're at, and then understand any further restrictions that you all would like to have put in it. With that, I'll turn it over to staff to go through where we are today, and then we can have a further discussion.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Joe Petrella, Parks and Recreation Director. As Mike had said previously, or City Manager has said previously, this has been going on since I've been here. It's been about over 3 years. Discussions of the rowing club being put at Tropicana Park. So we've worked with the organization to kind of figure out what our terms would be. And we've come up with the initial terms that we would like just get direction on whether you want to move forward, make some changes, or do things a little differently out there with the agreement. It is a license agreement, so I just want to clarify that. We're going to move forward. So the Cape Coral Rowing Club, they're an educational 501c3 nonprofit organization. They were incorporated in September of 2007. And their purpose is to provide training and education in the sport of crew rowing and youth and adults in our community. The organizational member of a national governing body of U.S. Rowing and state governing body of Florida Scholastics Rowing Association. Currently, they train approximately 50 members, 30 youth, 20 adult, and they also host some guest rowers from around the world. Most recently, I think you had an Olympian that was out there, Sandra, right? Yeah, so it's been interesting to see some of the people that come through that use our canal system to train in rowing. Their community service engagement youth crew, they serve all area youth in grades 6 to 12, competitive sports team. The adult rowing, they have a master's program open to all adults in the community, lifelong recreation and fitness endeavor, and current membership ranges in ages from 20 to 80 on the adult side. The youth crew season runs from mid-October to mid-June, includes about 8 competitions, and ends with open summer camp. Masters hold multiple open house events, learn to row classes, and offer a novice rowing program. They also travel around the state and other areas to compete in competitions, just continue the recreation endeavors for our residents. Some success stories. Since we've been partnered with the city, the rowing club has had several athletes earn scholarships to different universities. They've had someone go up to the United States Naval Academy lightweight crew, University of California, San Diego men's crew, College of Holy Cross women's crew. 2 received scholarships at Stetson University men's crew and Massachusetts Institute of Technology women's crew. That's a big program up there. So just a brief overview of the terms of the agreement. It's a term of 10 years. The premises of the agreement is approximately 11,300 square feet and used to offer community programs dedicated to the sport of rowing and training of adult and youth teams for recreation and competition. Cape Coral Rowing Club is responsible to install and maintain perimeter fencing around the premises at its sole cost and expense. Cape Coral Rowing Club shall not make any additions, changes, alterations, or improvements to the premises without the prior written consent of the city manager or city manager's designee. Any and all expenses and costs associated with any construction improvement shall be borne entirely by the Cape Coral Rowing Club. The club agrees to pay costs of all daily operations, and the club shall be responsible for the payment of any and all real property taxes imposed against the premises, if any. That's a location of Tropicana Park, just kind of give you where it is in a bigger picture in the city, and then a little bit smaller picture to kind of zone in on it. And on this slide, we can show you where the licensed premises would be. It'd be in the southeast corner of the park, located near the docks that have just been put in during its construction phase out there. Definitely just wanted to get that in front of you to get some ideas of where we want to go with this. Sandra is here to answer any questions. This is a picture of them rowing early in the morning, but she is here to answer any questions you may have, and I'm also here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kilrain.
Yeah, Joe, in our one-on-ones this week, it was brought up that there were some concerns in the licensed area that there would be some kind of permanent chase boats there, and for that they'd be in those spots permanently. Is that the case, or were we able to handle that? Or
Yeah, the chase boats we're looking to keep in the canal right next to the docks. We have a spot that's been located in the plan, but yeah, that was the going plan to put those let me get to the map here. If you locate kind of where the canal comes in, up in that northeast side of the canal, up in that corner, where there was a spot that we earmarked for that.
Okay, and I think the other part was a little bit with the timeline, when it's available and when it's open to the general public and when it's open to the club.
The docks are always open to the public. So they can come in and with their own kayaks or their own personal watercraft. The area where that's licensed out will be only open to when Sandra the rowing club runs their program.
Okay, I'm highly supportive of us doing the licensing agreement. I know that the sport itself has been a path and avenue to some higher educations of pretty good quality, and I think that it's a benefit to the city to have this. I like that it's really formatted and constructed to pick up on the youth more so than anything else. And there's a lot of life skills learned through that process. And I think it's a great thing to do and have it available to them. And I think that I read your agreement. I think the agreement seems fair. So thank you. I'm supportive of this, Mayor.
Thank you. Could Joe, got a lot of lights on, but while that we're going down the line and having discussion, could you put the map up? It shows exactly the licensed premise area, that one there. So maybe you could leave that up while we're having our discussion. Let's go on to Councilmember Kadook.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually going to ask you if you knew anything about this or any of the controversy. I know I read online that maybe you knew anything about it. So if you could fill us in, I'd greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, our previous discussions on council several years ago, the only real big concern I think that we had at the time was really the condition of the site, how it's kept. And since we are moving this to, you know, a park that we just spent millions of dollars at, I think the concern was to make sure there was some type of proper buffering. You know, so individuals going to the park, I remember back in 2018, I believe it was, when we initially, 2018 or 19, we're having this discussion. I'd actually went and had taken some pictures of when they were down at Cape Harbor. I'd say a couple months ago, I went by their current location. And, you know, there's a lot of equipment. There's a lot of time where they're spread out all over the place. So I think it's important, and that's why I wanted to bring up where exactly that license premise was. For me, one of my recommendations is going to be that there's some type of a fence up that is a barrier for that 11,300 feet. So it's put around the perimeter. And for me, what I'm looking for is a privacy style fence of some sort. And it's high enough where you can't see any of the equipment. If you go down there now, there is a 6-foot chain link fence around their existing site. I'd have to guess their storage racks probably are 8 to 10 feet. So you can actually still see them. For me, because this is a park, you know, you have residents right next door, or right across the street. I think it's important that we keep this identified area, have the adequate barrier so we can't see that equipment. And that was really mainly the concern that we had on a previous council. There were some discussions putting them up at Crystal Lake and then Tropicana Park, where we went back and forth with that. And eventually Tropicana Park was identified was, you know, the area I think that they were looking for. So I think, you know, we just got to make sure that we're good neighbors to the residents in that area. I noticed, you know, for me, the hours of operation, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Most of our other parks only operate during daylight hours. So I think that's something that we should talk about as a council because there are residents nearby. But that's really the only concerns that I think that the previous council, once we picked any location, was just to make sure that, you know, it was kept nicely. You couldn't see all the equipment. And I think that was our biggest concern.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Eric, can I just kind of, I know we talked about the 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The reason why we put it a little later is they travel to a lot of tournaments and they don't get back in time to be there at sunset. So that's why we felt it was important to give them a little bit more access so they can get their equipment back in. So, but again, that's just something to consider, right?
And I guess that's something that we could maybe define a little better in the agreement.
Okay.
What I don't want to see down there personally at you know, when it's getting daylight at 7:30 in the morning, cars going down there, turning on the lights, you got the residents that live across the street. You know, we got to make sure that we're good neighbors. But if they're there to get maybe equipment to go to a tournament, or they're coming back for a tournament after park hours, surely I think we should allow them to at least do that. What I don't want to see them down there 3 hours, doing whatever in the dark and being disruptive to the residents. So that's one of my concerns. Anything else you had, Councilmember Kadu?
That was all.
All right. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. Joe, where did they get their funding? There's a lot of things here that they're responsible. It's their sole responsibility to, and there's certainly dollar signs on all this. Where do they get their funding?
I'm going to let Sandra answer that one. I know it's she raises funds in nonprofit wise, but I don't know exactly where she gets it from.
Yes.
Is she okay to talk?
You can come here.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. Our funding comes primarily from member fees. We benchmark those in the state of Florida against all other programs. And we also try to make sure they're commensurate with, the demographics of our community. So, for example, our youth fees are probably half of what Sarasota Crew has for youth fees because they have probably 300 kids. We have 30. So that's the primary source of our income is member dues, and anything else that we do is fundraising. So we don't have donors or sponsors per se. That's an extremely sporadic situation if someone decides they want to give a donation. Generally, we do a ton of fundraising, and what we do most is I haul all my kids to Hertz Arena during Everblades hockey games, and they make popcorn and serve hot dogs, and we get 10% of sales and whatever tips we make. So we do that as much as we can. We also work at JetBlue Park during Red Sox spring training and do the same thing. We're basically just food vendors, and we get to keep a percent of sales and tips. Those are our primary fundraisers. So we don't really have a ton of outside funding, but we've been in a kind of an anti-growth sort of situation just based on the size of our footprint at the temporary location. So rather than investing as we should at the rate of depreciation in like equipment to better serve the community, we've kind of been in a bit of a stasis situation where we are reserving just to see what this is going to cost.
Okay. And given this amount of space that we're talking about here, would that allow you to have more than 50 people?
Yes, and it allows us to do some other things that almost all clubs in Florida do, which is host guests during the wintertime. There are a tremendous number of organizations, mostly collegiate crews, that come to Florida mostly during January. They'll come back during spring break, and they need a place to row out of. And so they'll go just about anywhere. I mean, we just went last weekend to a place over in Fellsmere, which is on the other side, near Vero Beach, etc. And they're in Canal 54, one of those sugar canals. And that's a wet launch situation. But they get in that community colleges from like Ivies come and they row there. So that helps us to be able to accommodate those kind of things too, because the premises is really just equipment storage. Like it's not a field of play or anything. It's just secure storage because our equipment's not portable. It's not like that bag of soccer balls that you can just bring to the pitch. We can't take our 60-foot boat and put it on top of the car and park it in the driveway, so it's really just point of use storage. So yeah, that footprint would allow us to host some economic development opportunities, but also to grow. And we're getting traction with all these placements. Those success stories bring in more kids.
And have you ever approached the Lee County Tourist Development Council for any funding for any of your activities?
No.
I would recommend you put it on your list. I'm fully supportive of this. I absolutely believe that every organization in our community should be good neighbors, and they should maintain their property well, and make it visually appealing for those that live, work, and play around it.
Yes.
And so, assuming that would be done, fully supportive. I think it's awesome that we've got are they called oars or paddles? I'm not sure. Oars. I think it's fabulous that we have oars in these kids' hands instead of cell phones. And the more people we can attract to being active outside, enjoying, the environment that we have here, the better. And I would like to see our city supportive of efforts like this and continue to grow that activity-based, enjoyment of our area. And so I sit on the Lee County Tourist Development Council, and if you're able now to attract people to come into our area with a facility like that, and you'd have rationale that would stand behind your ask, because that's the intent. I think you'd find an additional funding source there that could help you with some of this. They don't do capital improvements, but they will do things that will help fund attraction to the area. And so I'm fully supportive of the effort, assuming that we deal with the good neighbor situation.
Yes, thank you, sir. I will definitely take that under advisement.
Thank you.
Councilmember Long. And then-
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just was going to bring up the point that the mayor had previously spoken to. This is a pretty hotly contested issue in my district. It's in my immediate neighborhood, I guess. And all the context that the mayor provided was fine. I guess this isn't something I'm going to support. I don't think I supported it last time either. But I guess just speaking to that point, the main issue is sort of the visual, the aesthetics of it, to speak first. And so the mayor had said he visited the site that they formerly had, wasn't in great shape. Visited the site that they now inhabit, wasn't in good shape. But hey, maybe third time's the charm. Let's hope that it works out at our multi-million-dollar brand new park facility. That's one of my main issues. We're never really going to be able to get around that issue, no matter what kind of fence you put up. And we also just restricted the types of fence that they can put up. So cost is going to be an issue. I believe just really kind of rolling that forward. We just eliminated outdoor storage more or less throughout the city. And now here we are again putting it not only in one of our brand new parks, but also right next to our new crown jewel, which is set to be Seven Islands, a couple $100 million facility. And now right front and center facing Old Burnt Store. The first thing you see when you pass that or come into the park is going to be outdoor storage. So that's one of the issues that I hear a lot of from my constituents. That's primarily the issue. Budget was another thing, and I don't know that it made it through, but there was something in the budget the last cycle. There was a request for a couple $100,000, I believe, for this facility. It didn't make it through, but do you remember that was on the list of asks from the departments themselves?
It was.
Okay.
I had
And so where does that couple $100,000 go then, since that was denied? How does this still come to fruition? Do you remember the nature of that ask?
I was trying to kind of get to the vision that I heard last time, where we were trying to get the fences up and maybe put a shade cover in, so that it looked a little bit more aesthetically pleasurable out there.
And that was like 300,000, was it not?
Yeah, it was 300.
Okay, so then something for you all to consider, $300,000 ask to make it visually appeasing. It was denied, so where does that money come from? So I can see it's just a trickling effect, sort of this progressive seduction. Sure, we have this context, we have these decisions, which we make all the time without any idea of how the funding works. We're committed to it. We signed the agreement. A couple months later, hey guys, we can't make it look pretty in a brand new park because we need a couple $100,000. I don't want to get into an issue where we do that. And then the snowball effect. We already got an email. Somebody wants to put a dragon boat club at Burnt Store Road at their park. So where does it end? And lastly, there's no way that any of you would support putting something like this in JC Park, nor Sands Park, nor the brand new yacht club. So why in the Northwest in Tropicana? Thank you.
Councilmember Laster.
Thank you, Mayor. I look at this totally differently. As a former college rower, yes, the University of Texas did have a crew team back in 1991, and it was a club sport, and I sat number 4 in an 8, and I stroked a 4. And I've rowed with you all in the past. I look at this totally differently. I think everything that everyone said in terms of support, the fact that you are now generating collegiate rowers is phenomenal. I know that on Town Lake in Austin, in the early 90s, we had many regattas during spring break. And yes, the Ivy Leagues came. We had Cornell, we had Princeton, we had Harvard, because they can't row up there because it's too cold. So, as Council Member Steinke mentioned, yes, you should be applying for grants. And I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you, and I'm going to show you how to do that, because what you need is a boathouse. What the mayor's saying in terms of a fence, and what Councilmember Long's saying in terms of the equipment being everywhere and unsightly, if you had a boathouse, that would be self-contained and it would be beautiful. And that would definitely catapult you to the next level. There are opportunities throughout the state, throughout the county, as well as federally, that we could look at some grants, and I'll help you, Sandra. But I wholeheartely support this. And I understand why you're pausing and you're not growing, because you need to make sure that we're secure here first. And, you know, to Councilmember Long's point, JC Park, Yacht Club, it's not really big enough. I mean, if you've ever been out on an 8, it's difficult to get out. You have to have a pretty wide area to be able to turn that 8, in addition to the safety boats that follow these sculls and these 8-seaters and 4-seaters. So I will support this, and I will help you, Sandra. I have some ideas as we're sitting here thinking about this, and I'm so happy to see that you have progressed. I know it was a big deal in 2018, as the mayor alluded to, and my hope is that if we can help you, I can help you raise money to get this boathouse, then you won't need a fence, because it'll be so attractive and it'll be the perfect place. And I know our Parks and Recs director, who's from Connecticut, I'm sure you've seen boathouses up there. They're gorgeous. And, you know, there's something that we can host collegiate events here during the spring when they aren't able to row on their own water. So I'll support this, and I will get with you probably by Friday. I'm crazy next 2 days, but I'll get to you by Friday, and I'll send you some links, and we can kind of work through. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. The concept is exciting, but the Councilman Long had a point there. I need clarification on when we're doing things for an entity. How does it pay for itself? Do we don't approve it? Do we miss the city manager? Then try to find out after the fact. How do we make it aesthetically pleasing and being good neighbors? That's kind of, you know, subjective. And how do we make this, tighten up the language? And I'm just a little lost on that point.
Yeah, that's some of the direction we need to get today from council. So there's a couple of points. You heard a few of them brought up by Councilmember Kilrain, the mayor. You know, if there is no government funding from us, then they would need to seek funding from other entities like TDC or some raise private funds, as we just discussed. If not, they need to have their own funding source. And those are the considerations we need to understand from you before we finalize any license agreement. So, for example, in the draft term sheet, it says that they're going to agree to have a motorized launch that does not preclude access from the public to the floating dock.
Right.
And you heard the Parks Director say the intent is that it would be stored in the canal off the floating dock away from that. So that in the canal storage, if it's anchored to the bottom, as long as it's not in the center 50 foot of the canal, we legally by state law can't preclude that. But by entering into this agreement, you'd be accepting and acknowledging that they're going to keep a boat in that canal. So you just need to, we need feedback on that. We would need feedback on, if we're not funding a fence and landscaping, what condition precedent do you all want before they step foot on the property? Which could be submit and permit and construct a fence. Then that gives them a goal before they are able to utilize this area. They need to go fundraise a fence, have it permitted and constructed. So we need to understand the constraints. If there are hours constraints, you're going to get once a month for a meet, you know, and you need to get pre-approval from the city to come after sunset. Right? These are the operational discussions that caused all the points of concern and contention that were raised a couple years ago. And they're still open topics, which is why we've committed to make sure we come back to the council and to the community before we go much further.
All right. The last thing, my understanding is all of our parks are dawn to dusk or dusk to dawn. I always get that confused. But in this particular case, we are looking for an additional 2 hours based on the need for it. I would like to see that language tightened up so that it's very specific and find out when that would be, so that we know that on these particular times or that would be the time that we extend it. So I would like to see that as we continue to get this on the front end, so we're not chasing in the back.
Councilmember Donnell, I just wanted to kind of clarify, most of our parks are sunrise to sunset. We do have athletic fields and athletic parks that are lit. So they do stay open later. So there is precedent set to allow people in some parks for later times. Just to be
Like, as long as
perfectly
we're
transparent.
consistent,
Yeah.
it has nothing to do, I don't row, I do paddle bowling. Does that count? All right. But I would love to see it come through. Just gotta
One
make
more,
sure it's tight.
one more point on that. Through a license agreement or a lease, we can go outside of the standard. So for example, at Serena Vista Park, Councilmember Steinke was influential in saying, we want to have kayaks and rowing boats and canoes through a concessionaire agreement. And so we have a private operator storing boats and kayaks a mile down the road from this one in another park. So through these type of agreements, we're able to go outside of what is the general standard for all parks.
Just a couple of things I want to clarify and a couple of questions. Start with the organization. How many meets do you typically go to? One a month, 5 a year?
Well, you know what? I could tell you exactly what we're doing this year right off the top of my head. It's usually about 8. There's
Okay.
usually one in early December, one in mid-January, a couple in February. There'll be a couple in March, state championships at Nathan Benderson 2 times in April. And then if I have some pretty accomplished kids, I usually take them to Southeast regionals. That's generally rotates between Nathan Benderson and Sarasota and Lake Lanier, Georgia.
Okay. And as far as your safety boats, I know I've seen at least 2 down there. What is the normal amount of safety boats that you have?
Normally, we just use the 2. And the way the process works, especially since you've been there, this will be easier for you to visualize. Normally, we put out amongst the 30 kids, depending on what our next event is, we'll have anywhere from 4 to 8 different size boats. And that all comes down to what are we training them for the next competition? Is it a small boat or big boat, et cetera? So after the first 1 or 2 boats get out, there's a coach and a safety boat supervising those kids immediately. Cases right after. Our insurance, our commercial liability insurance, of course, requires that all the minors be supervised at all times. And we can generally handle that because we keep the kids contained in the 1,800 meter stretch in front of the 7 islands. We don't usually take them on row about. Sometimes we'll do it on Saturday, but we try to keep them all contained there so that we can see them and have eyes on them.
Okay, thank you. My next question is for staff. Mr. City Manager, you have any staff members here that from our building department or zoning that can tell us height of the fence that is allowed?
I will get somebody up from zoning and development services.
Okay.
Looks like they stepped out.
All right. So a few other things for me, when I look at the term sheet that I think we have to make sure the city has an expectation, and of course, the leasee will have a expectation of, what they need to provide. First, let's talk about any improvements. For me, when we had these discussions prior, I was against it, using any tax dollars for any types of improvements, and my position really hasn't changed on that. You look at this parcel that it's a little over 11,000 square feet on the water. We have parcels around our city today that paying upwards of about $10,000 a year, probably is about the max, about $10,000 a year just for property taxes. So I think providing a location, for this great organization, there's always already a cost benefit to them. They're only paying what, $10 a month or a year. I can't remember whatever in the term sheet. So it's very minimal. So any improvements to that parcel in that 11,300 square feet I think it should be the responsibility of the organization and not the city to provide whatever agreement that we both agree to. For me, I think the fencing, if we're going to use a fencing style, I know there's a big difference in cost. I would prefer to see something that's a little more resilient. We don't have to worry about it in the storm, like a concrete fence, but that's going to be extremely costly. And I don't know what your funding availability is. And then, it would be stuccoed, painted, could probably match the decor of the park. I think when I was down there before, I think they had some color schemes or something that blends in is what I'm looking for. So that would be my preference. The reason that I think you have to fence the perimeter and not just a portion of it is because when I was down at your location about a month or so ago, you had 4 or 5 individuals out there on some type of machine practicing rowing. I guess they were building muscle and strengthening, which, so there's going to be an area where you're going to store this equipment. And I like your idea, Councilmember Lastrick. Ideally, that's the best scenario. And hopefully maybe you'll be able to get enough funding in order to do that. I think that is the best solution. But you also are going to have some, setting up your equipment, getting equipment out, possibly people working out. That's why I think the fence perimeter. That way you're self-contained. People are visiting the park. They don't even really see that going on. And you're able to do what you need to do, and the residents can visit the park and not have to worry about any distractions. To me, it's all about aesthetics and being a good neighbor. I would like to see the hours of operation very similar to the rest of our parks from dawn to sunset, with the exception that you get prior approval from the department director that if you do have a event that you have to attend, you can go there early and you can go there later in order to get your equipment. What I don't want to see is after dark, you're down there utilizing the space some way. So I think that would help trying to be a good neighbor. But I think there are exceptions like events that you should be able to get authority or approval through the parks director. Safety boats, I think we have to make sure that we identify 1 or 2 boats, whatever it's going to be. That way it's clarity on both parties. Hey, we know exactly what the expectation is. And I know it states it in the term sheet, but I just want everyone to know that even though we've put these launch and floating docks in, this is open to the public. So it's for everyone. It's not just for the rowing club. And, I'm hopeful, and I think that, your organization will be mindful of that and make sure, you don't put a bunch of the 50-foot vessels, whatever you guys call them, and then they're there for several hours and blocking public access. But I don't think that's going to happen. But that is one concern that I have. I think the fencing needs to be some type of solid type fencing where it is. You can't see through it. What else? I didn't see anything in there. I know this is a 10-year licensing agreement, I believe. I think there should be something in there just for the future. Not saying that there will be, but I think there needs to be something in there that says that either party can terminate the agreement with the 60-day notice. Did you hear that, Mr. City Manager? I know you were. I said that I think there should be something in there that specifies that either party can terminate the agreement with a 60-day notice. And the reason that I think that's important to have in there, there's going to be an expectation and guidelines for the organization to abide by. if at any time that they're not, of course, we put them on notice, and if that continues, I think we have to have a built-in out if need be, whether it's this council or some council in the future. So I think that's important to have in there.
Mayor,
Yes.
in Article 2 on the term sheet, there is that Article 3.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that.
It's on there.
Term and lease agreement under that? Okay, I did see that now. Yep, yeah,
And
that's
there's a
fine.
cure cost.
Last sentence.
Yep. So that's pretty much all the concerns that I have. I think that it's a great organization. This is where we chose to put or allow this organization to work out of. And my concern really is just about aesthetics and being mindful of the neighbors around. And hopefully you'll take that same concern in your day-to-day operations down there. But that, I think, is all the concerns that I had. And we have a few more lights on here. Councilmember Kadu?
Thank you, Mayor. I felt like you were going there, but I didn't hear the answer. Do the safety boats get permanently docked at Tropicana Park?
Yeah, I believe so. I'll
Okay.
let the Parks Director.
Yes, they do.
Okay, and then I felt like Councilmember Donnell was going there, but I didn't hear an answer. Is there any plan to spend any city money on this?
There is not, except
Okay.
for the construction of the park.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kilrain?
Yeah, just to circle back, I didn't say much about the requirements that you all would do to comply. I think the mayor's list is perfect. I couldn't, find fault with anything on it, and I would like to see that done too. Just an aside, I have a grandson that's in the crew for many years up in New Jersey. Mike, what's the river that goes through at Newark in New Jersey? Is that Passaic? I froze my tail off trying to watch him up there. A beautiful boathouse. But there was a market for you guys up in the Northeast because there's a lot of clubs up there that need something to do. And almost every second weekend in November and December, they get booked out where the weather's just too bad to do it. So there are a lot of private high schools up there that have very substantial rowing crews. They're always looking for places. They love a week down in Florida over the, that period of time. So I think there's a market for you there. In addition to that, the rowing machine that the mayor had referenced, it's my understanding that all of the Ivy League, they just look at your time on that machine as compared to your time on the crew boat. And that's what gets you into college. So to the extent that you can get to that boathouse level and have those machines in place, that's going to get a lot more scholarships to a lot of Ivy League schools. So I'm just sharing that with you because I know what my grandson's into. But I think it's a wonderful thing. And I think with those constraints that we apply to it, without doing city money, I hope that Councilman Loster is able to help you in finding some more funding and the council that Councilmember Stanky had brought you for an advertisement thing, be to help with the, but please reach out to those Northeast schools because I think there's a real opportunity to bring some of them down here and pick up a little coin on the side. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention when I went down my list that I just wanted to clarify was the fencing, whatever type of fencing that we come to an agreement with has to be, of course, permitted, installed before they occupy. And I see Amy's here, so she's going to tell us the height of the fence.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. For the record, Amy Yearsley with the City Planning Division. Fencing for recreational facilities can go up to 10 feet in height. When you get to ballparks and things like that, it gets a little bit higher for backstops and things like that. But in this case, it would be 10 feet. There also is a provision in there that says that the recreational facility the fence has to be constructed of at least 9-gauge fence fabric and Schedule 40 tubing, which is very specific. But that's
When
the
you say
requirement.
fabric, that's when you wrap the fabric around the fence. Mhm. So I think it's important for us to have that discussion, visualizing what that look is. But I appreciate the height of the fence. And Mr. City Manager, what I would like to make sure that we have in there, I think the height of the fence, they can decide that with the understanding that no equipment can protrude above the fence line. So when you have the fence up, it's 100% blocked.
So if they go with a 6-foot fence, they're limited to 6 foot.
Exactly. If they put a
If they
10 foot.
10 foot, they're limited to 10 foot.
Exactly. And, I think that will benefit, both of us. But that's where I'm at. Councilmember Steinke.
I think Amy wanted to say something.
I was also going to just add, coming up a little bit later in the meeting, you are going to be talking about the changes to the fence regulations. And in that, in there, where we have specific regulations regarding types of fences, there is a provision there that will allow us to kind of alter that through kind of an administrative deviation. So keep that in mind. So as we move forward on that.
Thank you. Good, Councilmember Steinke.
Yeah, thank you very much. I take a different position on something that's just been talked about, and I offer it up for consideration by a few that talked about it. One of the things that I saw one of the things I didn't see in the agreement was any breach terminology. If they were to breach, then what would happen? The only thing that's in there is either party can terminate the agreement. I'm not in favor of trying to support an organization and encourage them to fundraise and to make a class facility that at the whim of 4 people, they got to move out. If we're gonna make a commitment and accept this organization into our city for what it adds to our community and what it attracts to our community, then we've got to be as committed to the effort as we're asking them to be, in my opinion. So if we're okay with the rules that we're asking them to abide by, then I think that those provisions of cancellation should only be there if they don't abide by those rules. And that would be breach terminology in the agreement that says if these rules are not followed, that you'd have X amount of time to cure. And then if you do not cure, then termination of contract and vacation of premises would be required. And the current terminology is either party can terminate it in 30 days. And then if we terminate it, they have 60 days, they got to be gone. And why would we want Councilmember Lastra helping them with funding to build a boathouse and develop a world-class facility that collegiate athletes would want to come here when at the whim of 5 people we say, gotta go, sorry. So I'm not in favor of the, hey, can be canceled anytime. I am in favor of, hey, if you don't abide by the rules, you gotta go. But that's the way most all lease agreements are. So I'm not in favor of, hey, 30 days, you got to go. That's highly, certainly city friendly, but that's not friendly to the organization that we, in fact, by doing this are saying, hey, we're glad you're here. So that's where I stand. Thanks.
And just to clarify, this is a licensing agreement, not a lease agreement. So there's a little bit of a difference. Councilmember Long?
That's fine, and that's a valid point. Councilmember Steinke, I guess the only implication, it was a point that I was going to raise, is it was implied that it was a world-class facility. And so we need to talk about what that means, because a fence obviously wouldn't be that, but if there was a situation where they were able to fundraise, then yeah, certainly that's fair, right? 30 days, basically no cause termination when they did put that up. It's questionable, but as it currently exists, and some of the discussions we've had really resolve around maybe a fence. I don't know that I would attribute that sort of world-class distinction to something like that, and then that would be less of a situation. I want to remind you guys, I don't want to get too far down the road where we all just say, oh yeah, whatever we decide, and then it comes down, and then they decide, bring it back to us, and it's a fence, and we don't like it. Now we're, staff's committed resources, we're down the road. It turns into a bigger situation. So again, I would remind you guys, our own staff, who has obviously worked with the club directly, has come up with about a $300,000 figure to by city standards, which I'll leave that to your discretion, would make it appeasing to the eyes. A $300,000 ask, all respect to the club, you're not going to get that. Selling popcorn at Hertz, and if you were, we all need to get down there for the yacht club. But so we need to be clear here today what it is exactly that we want, because in my mind, to incorporate those points that Councilmember Steinke validly raised, we need to condition this going further on them putting up or being able to commit or build or erect or construct X. So we don't, get them even farther down the road and then realize, hey, we didn't come up with the funding. All we can do is a fence. Because fences have their own issues, right? And funding, obviously, in a nonprofit, all respect to the nonprofits, and this is an attack on the club specifically. You put up a fence and it's not a concrete wall. We want to talk about resiliency. The fence is coming down the next storm. And then where's the funding going to come up last minute to put the fence back up in our brand new multi-million-dollar park? So a lot of issues that we need to resolve. I don't like when we do these loosely on term sheets and some discussions up here about maybe a fence, we'll see what we like. And then we send them off and they come back months later. So I would love to be able to hammer something down today as far as what exactly it is that we would want from them to construct or erect or what have you as a condition before they move forward. Thank you.
And with that being said, Councilmember Long, what are you looking for? I think we're all probably on the same page that we want a fence.
Yes.
And I think we're on the same page. It sounds like that we want the fence to be the perimeter of the 11,300 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so now we have to talk about, I think the height of the fence, they can dictate. They understand that they can't have equipment over and above that. Sounds like they have up to 10 feet.
But I don't know necessarily that it has to be the 11,000. It would have to be whatever they want to enclose, whatever they want to keep on that land. If they need to expand later, then they would have to extend the fence enclosure to contain whatever they have. I think if the verbiage was they must construct a fence that would become the perimeter of anything they want to enclose, they're still responsible to keep the lawn outside the fence, taken care of and whatnot. But if they don't need to enclose 11,000 feet now, then okay, enclose what you need to enclose to have the equipment that you need. But then if you need to expand because you get more boats or because whatever you have, then you gotta build more fence before you can keep more boats there, but you're still responsible for maintaining that 11,000 feet, perimeter inside and outside the fence.
Have you ever visited these sites when they're there?
I've not.
Please.
And if you had, you may have a difference of opinion, so I'll try to explain. We're not putting a fence up for a storage area for their equipment. We are putting, or at least for me, my expectation is you're putting a fence up so they can utilize that 11,300 square feet any way they see fit. And when I say that, you have these boats on racks that you have 2 or 3 high in one area. And then they pull the boats off and they stick them over here to do whatever before they get them out into the water. And then you have other ancillary type equipment. You have that rowing machine that Councilmember Kilrain talked about. I don't know if it's the big exotic one that he spoke about, but you see people out there rowing, people walking around. My expectation in being a good neighbor is that 11,300 square feet is perimetered off. They use part of it for storage, part of it for working out, setting up, whatever they need to do in that area. Now, if they can accommodate that with all of that, with 8,000 square feet, then great. But they can't work outside the area of the fenced-in area. So what I don't want to see is a small fence around the storage equipment that they store there on a daily basis. They pull it all out onto the property.
Agreed.
And then they're working and doing all that, and people are driving into the park. See, so I just want to make sure that we clarify what the expectation is.
Okay.
I can kind of help clarify that a bit, just so we're all on the same page. The licensee premises is where they were going to store and get their things. Like anything, you bring a kayak down to the ramp or whatever, you got to stage it, right? So
Yeah, I mean, that's
so
understandable.
the plan was for them to take it out of their licensee premises and stage it near the ramp so they can bring the boat down onto the docks. So there will be some staging out there. In my opinion, I'd prefer that to all be fenced because then we're talking about maintenance differences, and we already have gonna have a maintenance contract out there, and we're gonna be mowing. And do they stop where it's not fenced because they're the licensed premises, and then they got to mow it? I just don't see that as being feasible. I'll go back to Councilmember Long's comment just in regards to the 300,000 that I had put in for. Part of that process and my thought process was that we would run the facility and rent slips out like we normally would, or somebody would run it and rent slips so we get some revenue back. Just because I knew the cost, right? So that's kind of why I put that ask in. Like a boathouse is something I've talked about multiple times. That would be also another opportunity to rent good space out, right? But that's, again, a huge direction and different in price, right? So that's kind of what was my direction. So we've been just kind of directed to provide this from the get-go since I've been here, and this is where we are, and we love this information that we're getting from all the council because this helps us kind of go back to the drawing board and really figure out where we need to be with this license agreement. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think to get back to the fence, it sounds like everybody's on board with the fence. We can discuss what the Parks Director recommended, the whole 11,300 square feet. I think the type of fence is important. This is a long-term lease or licensing agreement. It's a 10-year licensing agreement with two possible 5-year extensions, I believe. So we're talking 20 years. So I think it'd be important to make sure when we put a fence up, it's one and done, it's resilient. That's why I think it should be a concrete fence. I think it'll be more aesthetically pleasing. It can be painted to match the decor of the park. It is more costly, but if this was only a 2-year agreement, then I could understand that you wouldn't want to bear that expense. But unless you're doing something like Councilmember Steinke said, that you're violating the rules, you're going to be there for 20 years, probably longer, but you have an agreement that you can be there for 20 years. And as long as you abide by the rules, I think you will be. So to spend the extra money, do the fence once, to me is a smart thing. And it's going to be probably a little more aesthetically pleasing as well. So it's more resilient. It's going to look better and probably match the decor. So I think that's the discussion that we really need to have here, because it sounds like that's going to be the first step. Get the fence up once it's approved, and it's constructed, and the city goes out and does an inspection. Yeah, the fence is up. Then that gives them the green light to move in. And I think that's what we're looking for here today. If we can come up later on and put a storage building in there, I think that's great. But I think, just to get them up and running and open, the fence is the first step. And so let's try to really focus as a council on that, what type of fence. I think minimum's probably going to be 6 foot, maximum's going to be 10. It's up to them, knowing that the higher they go, the higher they can have their racks. Look like their racks and what are they, about 8-10 feet now down there?
Yeah.
It's probably closer to 8. And just for the sake of clarity, like where we are today, based on the terms and, the nature, I mean, it was a total fire drill to move from Cape Harbor to the third island. And as a result, all we did was pick up what we had there, maintain the same footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that this will be different is because we reused the fencing. We weren't ready for that surprise when you get your walking papers from a contractor who's going to build in the space where we used to be. That kind of came and we had to immediately react. So we just basically relocated everything and reused that fencing. So this will be a start from scratch situation.
Okay.
That's always been the intention. And the intention is to have a perimeter that allows us to do things like bring all of that extraneous stuff inside. That's been the goal from the beginning, is to get all the extraneous stuff inside. The only reason that I have an enclosed trailer is because I don't have a building to store those rowing machines, and they will absolutely rot in Florida air. You know what I mean? So if I have inside perimeter, even an attractive storage shed, even if no one sees it, I'm getting rid of that trailer. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So the whole idea is to be able to start from scratch and not have to just in, the dark of night, pick up everything that we had just to stay operational and put it somewhere else, right? So right now, the situation is obviously not ideal. We've just been making it work.
Okay. Height of the fence, what do you think? 8 or 10 feet?
Probably 8.
8, okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so as we continue our conversation, let's try to focus on that fence a little bit so we can give staff that direction. And one thing I didn't even think about, it sounds like you're trying to have some type of a shed or something down there within that 11,300, because now you have, say you move in there after you get your fence. Was your expectation to put a trailer in there?
I would try to get everything in there because the footprint is significantly smaller than my original council approved footprint. The only thing that I won't have space for is the shell trailer. And so I'm just going to have to figure out where to park that.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Lehman.
Yeah, I would agree with
Come back
you
to
that the fence, I think the fence needs to be a concrete fence, basically to fit within the whole idea of the park. And I can understand you're needing an indoor storage type situation, and hopefully Councilwoman Lastro will be able to help you with the grant funding with something like that. But you're talking permanence. We're not talking, oh, gee, in a year you're going to have to move. As long as you're following the rules, you're talking a permanent location at Tropicana Park. So I think whatever we need to do to not only make it aesthetically pleasing to the neighbors, but also not have you have to worry about your equipment growing legs and walking kind of situation. So, yeah, I think it would be a good thing. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Long.
Yeah, that's all I was looking for, Mayor, was some clarifications. Concrete is great. I know it's going to cost more, but I mean, it's not unreasonable for us, given that what we're giving up. I mean, in all reality, it's 11,000 square foot golf access lot with 2 docks. Obviously, that's a significant amount of money in the general market. And so to ask in return that we have a little bit of funding put forth to keep maintain the values of that for the surrounding neighborhood and our own investment in our parks is reasonable. So I would support the concrete wall as well, conditioned on their occupancy.
And how about the hours of operation?
I really don't have a strong opposition to the additional hours. Obviously, the uniqueness of the way that they operate requires them to have, I think it was 2 extra hours, like 8 o'clock-ish or something.
Yeah, one of the recommendations that I said, it was from just like our other parks, but they could get a approval through the parks director. It sounds like they had 8 to 10 special events that they could go there before or after.
Listen, I hear a lot about the rowing club, but I don't hear about their hours. So I don't know that that's a significant issue with the community.
Okay. So if we get any, we know who to give.
Well, you'll have to talk to my successor.
All right. Councilmember Kaduke, would you like to weigh in on the fence and hours of operation, or anything else that you want to mention?
I'm fine with the concrete fence, 8 foot, hours of operation. I'm fine with the approval with our Parks and Rec director.
Okay. Councilmember Kilrain?
I'm good with it.
Yeah. The only thing I'll just say, just be careful when you say that 8-foot fence, because you're going to be limited to that. And if you got to go back, or you find yourself you need more height, it's going to be more costly to go back to put that extra 2 feet on. If I was in your shoes, I'd be building it 10 feet, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's just extremely difficult for children to get, we're talking about like steps and ladders to get up that
Which are like
high.
3 boats, I think, if I remember.
Yeah, we don't use our top rack that much right now. I mean, right now I probably have maybe 3 top rack boats and they're up there because they don't get used that often. So yeah, it's kind of a safety hazard at some point. And I just want to ask this question because in my mind, it's what I see. Are we worried this is going to look like a prison compound at all or? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, it'd be nice if we could have some bushes or something around it to kind of make it a little more aesthetically pleasing, but.
GDC has a mural program.
I'm just thinking more about like
For mural.
like airflow and light and those kind of things.
When you say concrete fence, we're talking about the material itself has to be concrete.
Yeah, like a block, concrete block.
Well, I don't know what, they're going to permit it. I mean, it could be all different kinds of concrete.
Or you stucco it or you.
Yeah, that's what
There's a variety of things.
That's what I'm,
Or does it have to be solid?
Well, if you got holes, you can see in it.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying.
Why put the
Well,
fence
here's
up?
the price.
It's a concrete wall. I mean, we're calling
we're
it a
talking
fence, but
about
it's a wall.
just the material.
Yeah, it's a concrete wall.
There's all different ways to accomplish it.
Yep.
I have no
Concrete
problem.
panels. Yeah, you said.
Yeah, I have no problem. And for me, it wouldn't have to be concrete. There are other resilient ways other than a concrete wall. You know, we just looked at making our buildings that are pump stations looking coastal in our downtown area. So there's other resilient ways to build than necessarily just a concrete wall that would be more aesthetically pleasing as built without having to worry about having a mural done. So for me, it would just be, it's got to be a resilient wall. Yes, when the next storm comes, it can't blow the thing down. Now we've got to come up with funding to make it look good again. So for me, concrete, fine. If it was, hardy board, that had a coastal appeal to it, it's okay with me. True hardy plank is a kind of concrete material anyway. But at the end of the day, I'm still an advocate for the organization, who you didn't even know you had. And that is, this is a lot of investment that we're asking them to do. And literally, Article 2 says it's a 10-year licensing agreement. But then it's further reduced to a 30-day agreement. This is just a 30-day agreement. And that's not fair to them. And I may be just one of 8 that sees it that way. But you can say 10 years with 2 5-year extensions all day long, but you tear that off and throw it away when you say either party can cancel it in 30 days. The 10 years with 2 5-year extensions means absolutely nothing with the verbiage in there that is a without cause termination provision. And that's just the real estate guy in me coming out. So if you were my client, I would not let you sign this license. And you may need, I mean, you may need it so badly that you'll take any terms you can get. But prudent counsel would tell you, do not sign this and be expected to invest all this money when on a whim they can say, sorry, gotta go. That's me.
That's an oxymoron, prudent counsel. Somebody like that.
Depends on how you spell it.
Relax. Go ahead, Councilmember Lee.
That 30-day business is kind of stupid. Because if you're following the rules, now I can understand it, with the 60-day situation. If you're not following the rules, if you are following the rules, you should be allowed to do the 10-year lease agreement with the 2 5-year renewals. I'm in favor of a concrete wall, and no, not to make it look like a prison situation. I understand what you're saying. And hey, even if you all got out there on a weekend and painted it yourselves, so that, but I think a concrete situation is going to be a lot safer for you in the long run. And I agree with Mayor in terms of going into 10 feet, because the afterthought would be ugly. You're better off, start out with the top level, and, fine, if you're not using the whole 10 feet, that's fine.
But it gives you the element of protection. Thank you. Yes, I agree too. I don't like the 30-day out clause. I think there's got to be another solution for that because, I mean, I don't even know how much concrete fence costs. But I have an idea about a boathouse, so it's going to be a lot of investment on your part. But I do agree with Councilmember Stankey, and thank you for saying that. Thank you for being the realtor up here to guide us on this one because I don't agree with that lease agreement either. The fence, it's